Let's talk about cyclones and the past couple of days. I've got a lot to say, but I'll try to bite my tongue about this sense that nothing happened and it was just overhyped and it was all like I sat there, I lived it, I was in it, all right? Was it Cyclone Tracy? No. One person died. Hundreds of thousands of people lose their power. People were being pulled out of the water. There was rescues happening, door knocks. How is this not enough for people? Instead, we turn around and say, oh, well, the media this and the media that. Matt, look, again, I am glad that Armageddon didn't turn up. I agree with you. I think bloody anyway.
I think you're right about the impact. I suppose the issue was that the media built up the cyclone for days. And look, who cares? We're nitpicking a bit, but the history of this stuff in Brisbane and southeast Queensland is that the winds are never that destructive. It is always the following rain. That's what happened with Cyclone Wanda in 1974. No one even remembers the name of that Cyclone Wanda. Everybody in Brisbane remembers the 1974 floods, which is what happened just after Cyclone Wanda went through and the depression afterwards. So, that was always the issue. It was going to be the flooding, and that's what we've seen, that enormous damage and, risk of people's lives. Amazing rescue efforts by our emergency services, who deserve all the applause. And look, I would just add too, Paul, I up here in North Queensland, I suppose a few of us are wondering and scratching our heads why people went off work for 3 or 4 days. I mean, my son goes to university down there. They haven't had lectures since Tuesday last week. And it was like 4 sunny days in Brisbane. And that just seems strange. I mean, we go through cyclones all the time up here. We went through a Cat 5 cyclone here 10 years ago in Yeppoon. I can't remember people taking almost a week off work. No, it's not a chip against Brisbane. I do think we're in this malaise post-COVID that we have these preemptive lockdowns as if that's going to fix things. Small businesses have been hurt by this because, they lose business when people don't go out and don't work, and there's no compensation package for them.
Yeah, look, that's absolutely fair. That's a fair point about, whether Thursday or Friday but in terms of the overall history, that basically this is going to be written off as nothing by a whole group of people, not you, Matt, but a whole group. It's just not the case, right? And I, of course, am not justifying that I went there in the media and it was bigger than I, and yes, there were some reporters that go too far. I'm just telling you, when you can hear the howl, you see the rain, and you see the floods, something happened, right? But Linda, I wanted to talk to you about with your sort of former experience in and around local government. It seems like Queensland councils are more empowered than, or even better organised than other councils around the world, where the country, not the world, where their mayor gives a briefing that's just as detailed as the premier's, but is able to get down to streets and suburbs. The publicly available information is down to streets and suburbs. I think the way they manage this in Queensland should never be taken for granted and should be replicated around the country.
Yeah, I think it is a very, very good system. I agree with you, Paul. I do also want to just acknowledge that, Matt, I love that only in Australia does a far North Queenslander go, mate, that's not a cyclone. You should say. Anyway, it's been very serious.
It's a flood. It's not a cyclone.
Correct. It's not a Yasi.
I
get it.
But look, I do think the Queensland mayors are full of compliments for Premier Christofouli, and I do really want to call that out. And I think the level of collaboration between the Commonwealth Government, the Prime Minister, the Premier and the councils has actually been magnificent. This poor Premier, he's on the other side of politics to me. It's his second natural disaster in a very short time. He's been talking to the mayors regularly. The feedback I'm hearing from Queensland mayors is that it's gone as well as it possibly could, given how difficult a natural disaster it has been, and that mayors have been, because they know their local area so well, able to, advise the public, as you say, Paul, when streets are closed, when schools can be open, and there's been that really nuanced approach, which I think works incredibly well. I also want to call out, since we had the floods in northern New South Wales in 2022, when local members like Janelle Saffin had to dive off her own veranda, literally go around rescuing her neighbours and swim out, we've got a national emergency agency. That has been a really big deal, and that helps to coordinate across the different federal agencies to bring support. The other thing that has dramatically changed is that we long advocated for prevention funding so that councils could get some funding, retrofit a surf club maybe as an evacuation centre, or build a flood levy to prevent the impact of these dangerous weather events from climate change on impacting homes and local infrastructure. The prevention money has been critical. That had been a recommendation of a Royal Commission in Australia 20, 30 years ago, and it was implemented by Murray Watt. It means councils can invest in prevention infrastructure, and that is going to save lives and it's going to save homes and properties, and that's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
Yeah, so Matt, I've got 60 seconds, so I sort of want to, what do the lefties say? Go back to what you were saying about, when you shut things down. I think there is just this very fundamental idea here that we've got to deal with, which is it is the responsibility of everyone to maintain normal life for as long as humanly possible until something gets in the way of it. But there is a very, very large number of people who love, and I'm talking about the public, who love the lockdown, who demand it goes longer. I think that's counter to the spirit you and I
love
share,
the lockdown,
but
Paul.
they do love it.
Yeah, I love the lockdown. I got a backyard here. It was fantastic. It was a beautiful time, but it's not right, and we've got to get out of this malaise. Look at our productivities through the floor, and this is only a small aspect of this, but we effectively shut down our third largest city for 3 or 4 days last week. Transport wasn't working. People couldn't get to and from work. The situation should be, if you have a risk to you and your family and your property, sure, some reasonable time off work to deal with that is and should be available. But this mass society-wide lockdowns, it makes no sense. And as I say, the real victims of this are the small business cafes, the shops. They get nothing. They get absolutely nothing. They've got to pay wages, they've got to pay rent, and they're in the hole thousands of dollars over the past week. And I don't think that's right. We need to reflect on that.
Yeah, well, look, and while they shut down the schools, there are so many examples of the people who just keep powering on, right? Like literally, didn't matter where we were, the cleaners, the people who work in the hotels, the people who work in the servos, they were there all the time, even, a few people in the gig economy as well. So, I see you and I think they should be rewarded as well. But again, the maximum opportunity for everyone to stay open. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Senator.